all safely say that that was a kept us all gripped. Would you safe to say that?
Yeah.
I don't know. Can you hear me? I don't know if this is working.
Yeah.
Do people want to sort of start asking questions here? Sort of the gentleman there. I'll do the running around and you can answer. How's that then? I'll come over to you. First of all, while I'm running around, do you just want to tell us where it was shot? It probably says in the credits, but I couldn't catch it.
It was shot near Port Merion in North Wales. Van Declan, yeah, all right. To be very accurate, a very small place for that. And then the aerial footage was all in the Inner Hebrides in Northern Scotland.
May I just
and then there are two shots, very close-up shots of the radio that we did in London.
May I just say what a lovely, well-crafted film that was, and
Thank you.
you know, where was your main inspiration for it? Where did it come from?
Main inspiration for, I guess, when I'm asked this question, I always talk about sort of Roman Polanski and his early sort of films, from Knife Underwater, I guess, all the way through to The Tenant, as the closed room thriller idea, really. Yeah.
Any more questions? Yeah, thank you.
Did the weather cause havoc with your schedule?
No.
Really? Not bad.
That was the least of our worries. It was in a cottage. We had 2 days outside. It was shot in 4 weeks. So.
The weather was actually very kind.
The weather was too kind. It was actually supposed to be much more rainy and
You're
dark
very lucky.
and wintry.
Okay.
It was muddy, though, if that makes you feel any better.
How did you manage to get, sort of, it must have been very intense because film crews, there's quite a lot of you, I would presume. So how did you manage to get those really intense moments without sort of, I don't know, sort of making the actors feel sort of, I don't know, sort of claustrophobic? Does that sound strange? How did you manage to get the raw emotion there that was so obvious on film?
I think I'm going to have to compliment Carl on this one. So I think he obviously directed them very well. They're very talented actors. We did do some things that were a bit unusual that we haven't done from a production point of view in the past, where we actually worked a 10-hour day without a lunch break. So the fact that they were, I mean, they had sort of lunch on the trip, but they didn't use, I mean, we had to get trailers for them for their contract, but they actually just sort of came up and stayed in the house.
Was that just
more or
to
less
make
the whole
them
time.
feel more sort of, I don't know, what was
Well, yeah, I mean, it was the whole thing was shot at, you know, in that location, and it was as small as it appeared, and it was me, the DP, the crew, which wasn't a huge crew, but and just those actors. So it was shot relatively quickly, in 4 weeks. So that all added to it, really, you know.
And we also shot it pretty much sequentially, which I guess in a film like this helps.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, we started at the beginning of the film and worked our way through.
And what made you decide to film the whole thing on location compared to like doing it in the studio in London? Things. Was it a good decision to, after filming, do you think it was a good decision to do it all on location, or do you wish you could have got there?
I'll do the first half. I mean, we did consider doing it in the studio. It was it was quite expensive, and B, I discussed with Carl. We both discussed that the idea of there was so much actual toing and froing at the beginning of the film, people coming inside, going outside, and stuff like that. That there seemed to me to be, if we could find the right house, there'd be a greater sense of reality, and exactly what Yvette was saying about bonding and keeping the actors in one place, rather than having to shoot some of it and then go and shoot the exteriors with them moving in and out. Seemed to me to be complicated. We discussed it at length, and then when we did find this perfect house in North Wales, that sort of decided it for us, and we, you know, it was relatively cheap compared to the studio, and it basically became, you know, once we found the house, actually, we said we're making the film.
Yes, I agree with all of that.
Yes, right. Oh, it's
I could shout it. Shout it. Was it difficult to choose the cast?
Was it difficult to choose the cast? No, we wanted to do something interesting with the casting, so we didn't want to kind of cast Jack maybe in an obvious way, and same with Martin, and so you know, it was sent to Cillian, and Cillian wanted to play the everyman, you know, which he maybe doesn't get all of the time. So, and with Jamie, he maybe, you know, he's got a particular interest in this sort of role because he's wanted to play this kind of thing for a while, and this was an opportunity for him to do it. And so, no, it wasn't that difficult. They were, you know, all of the cast were on from the screenplay onwards. So.
I mean, if I can add to that, I mean, Killian, I mean, it's on the internet, so I guess we can tell the story. We did have a different cast at one point, and when we approached Killian to play the part of Jack, the part that seemed to be free, and actually his agent was very clever and just happened to drop in to the conversation that he wouldn't want to play Jack, but sort of said it's a shame because he quite likes the other part. And so we then spoke, and it was actually a really good bit of agenting, which is quite rare.
The thing with Jack,
allowed us to switch.
Because we talked about David Tennant for a while,
yeah.
And so there was always something interesting going on there, I think,
yeah.
as well. With that, you know,
Can you tell us a bit about how you raised the finance?
Carl? So the finance, let's see, okay, so we did
one bit.
We did at one point have David Tennant attached, and that was the point at which Sony came in and said that they would buy the UK rights. And we had actually some very good friends of Carl's who Carl introduced me to, and I spoke to them about the possibility of investing privately through various means. So we had some friends of Carl's who knew him and backed him, and then once we had Sony, it sort of stacks up because you can then get gap finance from a bank, and you can get the UK tax credit cash flow, and so everything sort of stacked up once we sold Sony UK, and then Sony Germany came in and made up the last little portion.
I think Killian made a difference as well, didn't he? Because we got Killian at the point of
yeah, we got Killian when Inception was.
We kind of landed Killian just as Inception came out, so his stock was on the rise, as they say.
But suffice to say, it wasn't easy. But it did.
No, it took a long time.
Can I congratulate you on such a bleak ending that most films shy away from doing? And did you always set out to have that ending, and did anyone ever try to change that?
No, it was always going to be that ending. That always, wasn't it? Always. Well, not that one in particular with the helicopter, but it was always that. There was a bigger
version of the same ending.
Yeah. There was a rowboat, and then a crossing of the water, and then the bullet in the head, and then before that there was an even bigger ending, but it was always bullet in the head.
Oh.
We had some difficulty while we were shooting, trying to find a helicopter that we could use to have a sniper would shoot Tandy's character. But so one of my production nightmares was trying to find a helicopter. But at one point I was offered one of those American Black Hawk Down kind of helicopters. From a single moment, they were, it was the whole process really, and then seeing it realised, and then seeing great reviews come out and stuff like that. They're all great moments. So I can't put my finger on any one thing. I mean, it was difficult but rewarding. And
how long was the process from the actual conception to getting everybody together, choosing where you're going to film, bringing everyone in creatively, and then off to location? You mentioned you were filming for 4 weeks. How long in the edit, and how long to see it on screen?
I think from idea, it's probably 6 years. Entirely, completely. But I think it was made more difficult. I think by the fact that I was a first-time director that had not done anything before. It made it more difficult for Gary, who I'd written a great script, and I wanted to stay on as the director on the project, and Gary supported me for that. I think that probably took us a little.
Never again. Just in case there's any directors out there, never again.
No first-time director ever again. But I think that made it more difficult that I stayed on as the director for the whole thing. But from initial idea to Janice Hallett coming on board, who's sat in here as well, who's the co-writer of the screenplay somewhere. There she is, right at the very back there. To then going into development with Gary and Gary's company for that period, and then the casting, then the finance, and then actually being here on the release is about 6 years entirely. Oh yeah, completely. Yeah, it was always that. It was that right up to the end. Not right up to the end, but like up until I knew that it was actually going to happen. you know, which was a couple of, I can't remember, like a month maybe before. I can't remember exactly when we went, okay, the light is green and we can go.
Well, that's when I told you it was going to happen.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, yeah, that's what I mean. So it was like, it was a month before or something.
It was quite, it's a rocky road.
Yeah, it always is.
We actually closed the finance on the last day of shooting. If that makes any sense for anyone.
What was the worst moment, to be honest? Apart from something that got me food before.
What would be the worst moment? Okay. No, I can't say that.
What, which one?
Okay.
Yeah, that wasn't good. That was,
The only argument probably ever, that happened on it was to do with a stuntman. There was a scene that we needed a stuntman for, and the stuntman wasn't there, but the cast didn't know about it. So I got it in the neck. I passed that on to you, and then you got it in the neck. And that was probably the most, for me, the most friction I got from the whole situation. It was more of a sort of a logistical thing than a performance issue or a shooting issue or a directing issue. You know, I got it right in the neck.
That was difficult. I think probably the worst moment for me, or a very bad moment for me, was when I was about 2 weeks into the shoot, and I was paying the actors, but I was paying the actors piecemeal, if you like, because we didn't have all the money closed, and so I was having to play off these American lawyers, a very strong firm of American lawyers. And my phone rang at 2 o'clock in the morning. We were shooting 6-day weeks and stuff like that. My phone rang at 2 o'clock in the morning. I answered, I was asleep. And I had like 5 lawyers from America on the phone screaming at me, telling me they were going to pull the cast from the shoot because they hadn't received their money in their bank accounts that day.
And I didn't know this, so I was obviously happily filming away.
Yeah, so I think that was, pretty difficult because it was hung together. But we had a very lucky experience that everyone managed to pull through. The financiers were supportive, but there were a lot of very horrible conversations with lawyers. Actually, the least enjoyable bit of production really is dealing with horrible lawyers. Sorry if there are any horrible lawyers in the room.
Any other questions?
How jammy do you feel now with Cillian Murphy's rumoured to be in The Dark Knight Rises? I've actually got him in your film.
What was that, Sally?
He's rumoured to be in The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
And you've actually got him.
He was in the other one, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's rumoured to sort of apparently.
He was the Scarecrow. Yeah, he was the Scarecrow.
Yeah, he's been reported on set. It's been cited. So
Yeah.
you must feel really sort of quite jammy and. You know,
I mean, he's a good actor. He's a really, really good actor. I was very lucky to get all of them, really, at the end of the day. And then, so